The Galactic Council Chamber was carved from stone older than humanity's first cities, a cathedral of alien power and arrogance. 1,000 species had gathered in tiered rows, their voices a constant drone of chittering, bellowing, and mechanical tones. At the center, beneath the light of the great crystalline dome, a human stood alone. Ambassador Chen's voice trembled, but did not falter. 200,000 souls were wiped out on New Carthage. Civilians, families, children. We demand justice for this massacre. The words hung in the chamber like fragile glass. Then came the laughter. A clicking hiss from the insectoid Valari. A low rumble from the scaled T-Charwaxx. Laughter rolled across the chamber until it felt like the galaxy itself was mocking him. The human delegation shrank in their seats. Humanity's pleas had been ignored before, but never had they been ridiculed so openly. From her post at the rear of the delegation platform, Commander Elena Vaynar clenched her jaw. Her fingernails dug into her palms until she felt skin break. She had warned the diplomats. She had told them that begging only fed the predators circling humanity. Now, the predators laughed. The laughter ended with a voice that shook the chamber. Weaklings do not speak of justice. They obey. High Warlord Krozatich Vern, leader of the Zarkothi Dominion, rose to his full height. He towered above the assembly, scales black as obsidian, each plate etched with the scars of past conquests. His eyes glowed faintly gold, like embers waiting for kindling. His jaws parted, revealing teeth serrated for rending flesh. The colony was a lesson, Krozatich declared, his words translated into a dozen tongues but needing no translation at all. Humanity was given territory by the Council's mercy. You were warned not to grow arrogant. New Carthage forgot its place. So, we reminded you. A murmur of approval spread among some of the delegates. Others shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. None spoke in humanity's defense. Chin stepped forward, voice cracking with fury. You call slaughter a lesson? Those were unarmed civilians. Krozatich tilted his head, as though puzzled by the outrage. Every world is a battlefield. If you cannot hold it, you do not deserve it. The words hit Elena like a blade. She remembered the transmission feeds, the broken signal from New Carthage before it went dark. Streets burning. A mother clutching her child, both swallowed in fire. Marines overwhelmed in minutes by warships that dwarfed anything humanity could field. Elena could still hear the screams. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Rage was dangerous when untempered. Rage without discipline was what the Zarkothi expected from primitive mammals. No, her rage would be sharpened into something useful. Krozatich's words continued, taunting, echoing. Perhaps now you will remember your place, supplicants at the table of greater powers. Crawl, and you may be allowed to live. The chamber erupted with noise, applause, jeers, hissing support. The council speaker, a gelatinous being with little more spine than its words, struck the gong to restore order. But order meant nothing. The verdict was already written in the smug faces surrounding humanity. Elena looked at Chen. His shoulders sagged. She saw the fight drain from him as the weight of isolation crushed him. Humanity had no allies here. None would raise a voice against Krozatich. Her fists loosened. For the first time in years, she felt clarity. The council chamber was not a forum of justice. It was a theater of dominance. And in this theater, words were weapons humanity had exhausted. She stepped forward, close enough for Chen to hear. Say nothing more. Chen looked at her, startled. We can't stay silent. We've spoken for 50 years, Elena whispered. Her voice was low, steady. No one here listens. No one here cares. They will not remember our words. They will remember what comes after. Krozatich's gaze fell on her then, curious. He seemed to recognize the steel in her posture, though he likely mistook it for defiance, soon to be crushed. His grin widened, a predator's anticipation. Elena held his gaze without flinching. She let him see nothing, no anger, no fear, only silence. The silence of storms before they break. The gong struck again, signaling the end of session. Delegates slithered, stalked, or floated from the chamber, their laughter lingering in the vaulted hall. Chun remained rooted in place, broken by humiliation. Elena turned and walked out, boots echoing on the polished obsidian floor. The air outside the chamber was colder, sharper, filled with the stink of alien atmospheres vented by translation vents. She welcomed it. Captain Darius Holt, her second-in-command, fell into step beside her. His face was taut with restrained fury. "They laughed," he said softly, as if disbelieving his own memory. "They always laugh," Elena answered. "This was worse. They don't even hide their contempt anymore. They killed our people, and the council cheered." Elena stopped at the edge of the grand stair that overlooked the sprawl of Valoran's Reach, towers spiraling like crystal spheres into the stars. Fleets of alien ships hung in orbit above, each one dwarfing anything in humanity's possession.
"For now."
"They think patience makes us weak," she said. "They mistake silence for surrender. That ends today." Holt studied her, brow furrowed. "What are you saying?" Elena turned to him. Her eyes, gray as storm clouds over a restless sea, held no doubt. "Diplomacy is finished. They will never grant us respect. We'll take it. War. Not war." She let the word hang. Retribution. The word settled between them like the first stone of a monument yet to be built. Elena lifted her gaze to the stars beyond the dome. Somewhere out there, the ashes of New Carthage still drifted in silence. Somewhere out there, the Zarkothi fleets prowled, fat with arrogance. Her lips curved into something between grief and resolve. They believe humanity too gentle for fire. They have no idea what it means to light a match. And in that moment, Elena Vaynar knew the future. Humanity would bleed, yes, but so would the galaxy. The laughter of predators would be silenced in screams. The council had dismissed her people as irrelevant. Soon, the stars would burn with proof of their mistake. The Luna orbital dockyards hung above Earth like a steel crown, its ringed superstructure glowing with a lattice of construction lights. From orbit, Elena could see the oceans curve into night, the pale blue turning to black while sparks of industry glittered across the surface. Humanity's home had never looked more fragile or more worth defending. Inside Dock 7, the heart of the Terran Navy's rebirth pulsed with frantic energy. Workers in exo-rigs welded armored plating to hulls that stretched half a kilometer. Supply drones zipped along mag rails, ferrying munitions to waiting bays. Engines the size of apartment blocks thrummed under final calibration. Elena walked the command gantry, boots clanging against the grating as she looked down at the warship below. The Resolute was nearly complete, her matte black hull bristling with missile ports and plasma batteries. She was smaller than the Zarkothi battleships, but she was faster, leaner, designed to strike and vanish before lumbering enemies could react. Captain Darius Holt joined her, datapad in hand. His voice was hoarse from long shifts but steady. "Fleet readiness at 72%. We'll hit full capacity in 6 weeks, maybe 5 if the engineers stop sleeping." Elena's eyes never left the Resolute. "We don't have 6 weeks. Krozadich won't wait." "You're right," Holt admitted. "He's already gathering." The scouts confirmed a minion ships massing at the frontier. "Then we meet him sooner." Holt frowned. "If we move too early, we're walking into slaughter." Elena finally looked at him. "Darius, we've been walking into slaughter since the day New Carthage burned. The only difference now is that we fight on our terms." He nodded reluctantly, though his jaw tightened. He'd seen too many memorial walls filled in his career. They descended into the tactical operations deck, where holographic schematics of the fleet spun above the central table. Rows of officers and strategists argued over logistics. Elena raised a hand, and silence swept the chamber. She spoke without raising her voice. "The Zarkothi believe we are prey. They believe our silence was weakness. That ends tonight. We don't match their size, so we'll make them fight blind and bleed slow." With a gesture, she shifted the projection to highlight Dominion fleet formations. "They rely on brute force, heavy ships that crush through intimidation. We won't give them the chance. We strike fast, cut their supply arteries, and vanish before they regroup. Death by 1,000 blades. A murmur spread through the officers, grim but eager. For the first time, their strategy was not defense, but aggression. One young lieutenant raised her hand. "Ma'am, if we strike openly, the council will brand us aggressors." Elena's gaze locked on her. The council branded us weaklings while Crozatich burned our people alive. Their judgment means nothing. Survival means everything. The lieutenant lowered her eyes, chastened but resolved. Later, in her private quarters aboard the command station, Elena sat across from Holt as the two shared a rare meal of ration packs and lukewarm coffee. "Do you ever think about what this will cost us?" Holt asked quietly. Elena didn't answer immediately. She thought of New Carthage again, of smoldering ruins and silenced families. She thought of Earth below, glowing in twilight. "It will cost us plenty," she said at last. "But it costs us more to kneel." Holt leaned back, rubbing his temples. "You sound like you've already accepted the casualties." "I have." Her tone carried no bitterness, only finality. Silence lingered. The hum of the station filled it until Holt finally said, "Then I'll make sure the fleet follows you to the end." Elena allowed herself a faint smile. Not the end. The beginning. 3 days later, the first live-fire exercise filled the void near the moon. Warships maneuvered in coordinated patterns, engines flaring as they cut across orbital tracks. Drones simulated enemy fire, releasing bursts of light and kinetic slugs. Elena stood on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes on the tactical screen. Orders snapped crisply through the comms, voices overlapping but steady. The ships moved like a single organism, weaving between projected blasts, striking targets with precision missiles. "Status?" Elena asked. "Fleet cohesion 84%, reported the tactical officer. Reaction times improving. Losses simulated at 12%. "Too high," Elena said. Again. The crews groaned but obeyed. Run after run, they refined their maneuvers. Ships that lagged learned to anticipate. Officers stopped waiting for orders and started thinking like predators. By the end of the day, simulated losses had dropped below 6%. Elena nodded. "Progress." On the bridge, Holt leaned close. "They're starting to believe." "They'll need more than belief," Elena replied. "They'll need teeth." She authorized the final arming of the fleet. Crates of munitions were loaded aboard. Warheads, plasma torpedoes, rail slugs heavy enough to tear through Zarkothi armor. Engineers sealed the last compartments, running final checks. For years, humanity had begged for recognition with words. Now their answer would roar in fire and steel. That night, Elena stood alone in the observation bay, gazing at Earth turning silently below. Children played in the lights of cities, unaware of the fleets gathering to erase them. She thought of her own childhood, when the stars were a dream, not a battlefield. Holt entered quietly. "Fleet Command is ready for your order." Elena kept her eyes on Earth. "Do you remember what Crozatich said?" Holt's face hardened. "Every world is a battlefield. If you cannot hold it, you do not deserve it." Elena turned to him, her voice steady as stone. "Then we'll show him we deserve every world we touch." She pressed her palm to the command console. Across the fleet, a chime resonated, the sound of activation codes received. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "The Terra Navy no longer waits. We move to strike." Engines flared one by one across the dark, igniting the void in arcs of light. 50 ships strong, humanity's first true warfleet formed into a spear point, angled toward the frontier. On the bridge of the Resolute, Elena watched the formation align. She felt the weight of every life aboard, every hope tethered to the fleet's survival. Her voice cut through the comms, reaching every crew member, every soldier waiting in silence. For half a century, we begged the stars for peace. We pleaded for respect, and they gave us ashes. They think we are too soft to fight, too fragile to bleed them. They are wrong. Her words fell like hammer strikes, each syllable tempered by grief, sharpened by fury. From this day forward, humanity kneels to no one. From this day forward, they will remember our name, not as beggars, but as fire. The fleet roared acknowledgement, voices rising in defiance across open channels. Elena gave the final command. Set course for Archon Rift. Let the galaxy know the storm has come. The stars stretched as the fleet surged into FTL, humanity's first blade thrust into the void. The Archon Rift stretched across the void like a wound, a jagged scar of broken asteroids and twisted gravity wells. Traders once avoided it, but now Dominion convoys used it as a hidden artery, moving supplies to Kroza TH's war fleet. If Elena was right, bleeding that artery would stall his advance before it reached Earth. The Resolute slid from FTL with her fleet at her back, stars warping into sharp clarity. 50 Terran warships took position among drifting rocks, their dark hulls vanishing against the fractured backdrop. Engines powered down, weapons ran silent, hull plating cooled to match the background radiation. On the bridge, tension coiled. Officers spoke in clipped tones, fingers darting across consoles. The crew knew this was not another drill. This was war's threshold. Scouts confirm convoy incoming, reported Lieutenant Sanaa, eyes locked on her display. 8 Dominion freighters, escorted by 3 destroyers. Arrival window, 10 minutes. Holt folded his arms, his expression stone. Escorts will sniff us out the second they emerge. If they get a distress signal off. They won't. Elena cut in. We strike fast. Silence them before the freighters scatter. The fleet drifted into ambush formation. Smaller Terran frigates nestled inside asteroid shadows, missile bays primed. The heavier cruisers aligned rail batteries along predicted convoy routes. Elena's flagship hung at the center, spear point and shield in one. Minutes stretched like hours. No one spoke. Even the hum of the engines seemed subdued, as though the ship itself held its breath. Then, space tore open. 8 massive freighters emerged in shimmering arcs, their hulls swollen with supplies. Escort destroyers followed, bristling with plasma turrets, scanning beams sweeping like lances of light. Targets confirmed, Sanaa whispered. Hold, Elena murmured. Her gaze fixed on the escorts, waiting until the destroyers moved clear of the rift's distortion. Too soon, and their prey might scatter into FTL. Too late, and the destroyers would find them. The Dominion ships advanced cautiously, sensors probing the rift. One destroyer adjusted course, its scan beam grazing dangerously close to a Terran frigate's hiding place. Elena felt her pulse hammer. Now, she ordered. The void erupted. Missiles streaked from shadowed rocks, their exhaust plumes vanishing in seconds. Rail slugs tore through space at hypersonic speeds, invisible until they punched through the first destroyer's midsection. Fire blossomed, venting atmosphere and alien bodies into the void. The second destroyer swung hard, turrets spitting plasma, but Terran cruisers were already repositioning. A concentrated volley shredded its engines, spinning it helplessly into the rift's gravity well. It broke apart in silence, pieces scattering across the dark. The third destroyer managed to broadcast a burst of static before Holt barked, "Jam it!" Signal scramblers howled. The transmission cut off, choked before it escaped the ambush. A pair of Terran frigates lunged from cover, raking the Dominion vessel with torpedoes until it cracked open like a hollow shell. Elena's eyes shifted to the freighters. Massive, unarmed, panicked. They tried to scatter, drives glowing as they pushed for escape. Cut their engines, Elena snapped. Leave the cargo intact. The fleet obeyed with ruthless precision. Pinpoint rail fire crippled freighter drives, one after another. Plasma licked across armored hulls, carving away escape pods before they could launch. Within minutes, 8 wounded Leviathans drifted helplessly, surrounded by Terran steel. On the bridge of the Resolute, silence followed. No cheers, no relief. Only the heavy awareness that the first blood had been drawn. Holt broke it. Cargo holds confirm munitions, food, spare plasma coils. Enough to supply a fleet 10 times their escort size. Elena nodded. Krozatich will feel this. But her eyes narrowed at the tactical map. He'll also notice his convoys don't come back. Interrogations followed. Surviving crew were hauled aboard Terran vessels, scaled, reptilian Zarkothi, with eyes full of hatred. Some spat curses in guttural tones. Others stayed silent, resigned to death. One officer, taller than the rest, snarled at Elena across the holding bay. "You are cattle playing at wolves. Krozatich will grind your bones into dust." Elena stepped close enough for him to see her unflinching stare, then let him come and choke on the dust. The officer hissed, but said no more. Back on the bridge, reports flowed. Loot secured.
Casualties minimal.
Damage superficial. Yet unease lingered. Lieutenant Sinov finally voiced it. "Ma'am, what happens when they retaliate?" "They already planned to," Elena replied. "Now we choose where they bleed." Hours later, the fleet gathered in orbit around a captured freighter. Its cargo bay doors hung open, exposing crates stacked in endless rows. Terran Marines moved among them, cataloging supplies, planting demolition charges on anything too dangerous to salvage. Elena convened her officers. Around the hollow table, their faces were lit by the glow of Dominion schematics. "We've proven the fleet works," Holt said. "But the Dominion won't underestimate us again. Next time, they'll bring more ships. Bigger ones." "Good," Elena answered. "Let them come heavy. The rift favors agility. Their bulk will be their coffin." A younger officer, Commander Vance, shook his head. "We can't survive a prolonged fight. The Council won't back us. Supplies will run thin. Morale." "Morale isn't our weapon." Elena cut him off. "Fear is." Today, the Dominion lost more than ships. They lost certainty. Every convoy, every patrol, they'll wonder if we're waiting in the dark. Holt leaned forward. "And when Krozatich comes himself?" Elena's gaze hardened. "Then we remind him why humans don't stay on their knees." Later, she walked the observation deck alone, staring at the crippled Dominion freighters drifting under Terran control. Fires glowed faintly inside cracked hulls, illuminating the wreckage like funeral pyres. For a moment, she saw again the burning skies of New Carthage, the silence of its dead. This time, though, the flames belonged to someone else. Holt joined her quietly, arms crossed. "You've changed them," he said. "The fleet. They believe we can win." Elena didn't answer right away. Her reflection on the glass looked older than she felt, worn by too many memories. "Belief is dangerous," she murmured. Holt frowned. "Dangerous? It's what we need. It's what gets people killed when it turns into overconfidence." She turned to face him. "We won a battle, not the war. Krozatich hasn't shown his teeth yet." Holt studied her, then nodded. "And when he does?" Elena looked back at the stars, her jaw set. "Then we tear them out." When the fleet finally departed the rift, they left only wreckage behind. Dominion convoys would find nothing but ruins and silence. The galaxy had noticed humanity before, as traitors, as diplomats, as weaklings begging for peace. Now it would notice them as predators. And Krozatich would come hunting. The warning came as a whisper across the void, distress beacons from a Terran listening post near Proxima. By the time the fleet intercepted the transmission, it was only static. Elena studied the hollow silence on the screen, jaw locked. "Show me the sensor logs." A grainy recording flickered to life. Vast shadows blotting stars, weapons fire boiling the void, the station's shields collapsing in seconds. Then nothing. Holt's voice was grim. "Krozatich's fleet. He's here." Elena nodded slowly. "Signal the fleet. Prepare for engagement." Hours later, the Resolute emerged at Proxima's edge with her escorts spread in battle line. Space looked quiet, too quiet. The wreckage of the listening post drifted, glowing faintly with fire still burning inside. No sign of survivors. "Scan the system," Elena ordered. "Negative contacts," Sana reported. "But residual energy signatures are strong. They were here recently. Less than 4 hours." A chill ran through the crew. They weren't hunting anymore. They were being hunted. Holt leaned closer.
He's not gone.
He's waiting. Elena's eyes swept the tactical display. A predator's patience. That was Crozet. She could almost feel his gaze from the darkness. Bring the fleet into defensive wedge, she commanded. Shields at full. Weapons live. The ambush hit seconds later. Space rippled as Dominion warships dropped from FTL, tearing into real space like claws raking metal. 20, 30, no. 40 vessels. Dreadnoughts the size of cities, destroyers fanning into wings, carriers releasing swarms of strike craft. Their hulls glowed with blood-red etchings, a show of power and contempt. On the flagship at their center, Crozet himself watched, a figure wreathed in shadows, voice booming across comms. Little humans, you dare cut at my throat. Now you learn the price. The bridge crew froze at the alien's voice, guttural and dripping with certainty. Elena cut the channel instantly. Mute him. He won't have his theater here. Dominion ships locking weapons, Sanaa warned. Then give them fire. The void erupted. Terran warships surged into coordinated patterns. Cruisers rolled to unleash rail batteries. Frigates darted between asteroids, launching torpedoes in shimmering arcs. The first Dominion destroyer exploded under a focus barrage, fragments scattering like shrapnel. But the dreadnoughts returned fire with fury. Plasma beams seared through shields, tearing holes into Terran hulls. A frigate beside the Resolute disintegrated in a bloom of flame, her crew's screams cut short in the comms. Impact on the Valiant, an officer shouted. Hull breach. She's breaking apart. Elena didn't flinch. Form up tighter. Force them into the rift's choke point. Her plan was simple. Use the rift's chaotic gravity wells to restrict the Dominion's numbers. Force their massive dreadnoughts into bottlenecks where Terran speed could strike and retreat. But Crozet was no fool. His fleet pressed in with ruthless coordination, strike craft harrying the flanks, dreadnoughts pounding the wedge with relentless fire. Holt gritted his teeth. We can't hold this line forever. We don't hold, Elena replied. We bleed them. Minutes stretched into eternity. Every maneuver cost lives. Every volley tore ships apart. The Dominion advanced slowly, but inexorably. A Terran cruiser rammed a destroyer head-on, detonating its reactor in a blinding flash. The explosion ripped through both ships, scattering debris across the rift. Reports flooded in, casualties mounting, shields failing, ammunition running low. On the Resolute, sparks rained from the ceiling as enemy fire rattled the hull. Consoles flickered, officers shouting over alarms. Shields down to 30%. Forward railguns offline. Elena stood unyielding amid the chaos. Her voice cut through the noise like steel. Target their carriers. Without fighters, their dreadnoughts are blind. Missile barrages streaked across space, slamming into Dominion carriers. One erupted, venting strike craft in fiery fragments. Another limped, engines sputtering, before a Terran frigate finished it with a rail slug through the reactor. The tide shifted, if only slightly. On his flagship, Crozet watched with cold fury as his escorts faltered. Yet his voice carried confidence when he spoke to his commanders. Do you see them? Fragile, desperate, clinging to rocks. They will break. He turned his gaze toward the Resolute, eyes narrowing. Bring me their commander alive. I will show the galaxy her broken body. The Dominion concentrated fire on the Resolute. Plasma beams hammer her shields, tearing away protective layers. One strike ripped through the starboard flank, sending a shudder through the entire vessel. Engine room reporting containment breach.
Holt barked.
Seal it off. Elena snapped. All power to forward batteries. The ship groaned as engineers rerouted energy. The bridge shook with every impact, but the Resolute fired back with defiance, her railguns tearing into an enemy destroyer until it split apart. Crew clung to their stations, sweat and blood mixing as the battle roared on. At the height of the chaos, Elena made her choice. Signal the Dauntless, she ordered. Initiate burn run. Holt's eyes widened. That's a suicide maneuver. Her stare was unflinching. and the only way to crack their line. The Dauntless, a battered cruiser with half her systems already failing, surged forward. Engines overloaded, pushing her beyond safe capacity. She tore through enemy fire, ignoring the pounding plasma that gutted her hull. At the last instant, she rammed into a Dominion dreadnought. The collision lit the void in a sunbright detonation, the shockwave tearing through nearby ships. 2 enemy vessels spun out of formation, crippled beyond recovery. The comms fell silent. Then Holt's voice hoarse. "She bought us a gap." Elena seized it. "All ships, strike hard, then fall back to secondary coordinates. Make them chase us into the rift." The Terran fleet surged through the opening, unleashing every remaining missile, every last rail slug. Dominion ships reeled under the sudden onslaught, and the humans slipped into the rift's shadows, vanishing among the gravitational fractures. The battle ended not in victory, but survival. Wreckage drifted where dozens of ships had died. Both sides had bled, but humanity still breathed. In the shattered quiet after, Elena stood on the bridge, face lit by dying screens. The Resolute was scarred, her crew exhausted, but alive. Holt exhaled heavily. "We lost a third of the fleet. Maybe more." Elena closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them, steady as ever. "And yet we're still here. Crozet expected us to break. We didn't." She turned to the crew, her voice carrying across the battered bridge. "Remember this day. The galaxy thought humanity too weak to endure. But we endured. And we will endure again, until the last Dominion ship burns." The crew straightened, weary but galvanized. Even in loss, they had taken the fight to a predator who thought them prey. Somewhere in the dark, Crozet was already plotting his next move. But for the first time, he knew the humans would not go quietly. For the first time, he tasted doubt. The fleet limped through the void, battered but unbroken. Hulls scorched, shields flickering, half their number gone. Yet every surviving ship still flew the Terran banner. In the command chamber of the Resolute, Elena stood at the hollow table, eyes tracing the faint green blips of her fleet. Around her, exhaustion weighed on every officer, but their gazes clung to her. She had become the anchor keeping them from despair. Holt broke the silence. "Scouts confirm Crozet regrouped at Vega. His fleet triples ours. If we wait, he crushes us." "Then we don't wait," Elena replied. Vance, younger, rash, snapped his head up. "Ma'am, with respect, that's madness. We need time to rebuild." "We don't have time," Elena said sharply. "Every day gives him ground. Earth will burn if we let him dictate the pace." The holomap shimmered as she keyed in new coordinates. A star flared at its center. Sanaa frowned. "Sol, you're not suggesting." "I am," Elena said. "We fight him here, on humanity's doorstep. No retreat. No escape. One battle to decide everything." A silence thick as stone followed. Then Holt nodded slowly. The homeworld gambit. The decision spread through the fleet like wildfire. Some cursed, some prayed, some fell into quiet reflection. But none deserted. They had seen enough to know there was no running from Crozet. Preparations began at once. Shipwrights welded emergency plating over wounded hulls. Engineers cannibalized wrecks for spare parts. Weapons crews triple-checked every missile. Even the greenest cadet carried the look of someone who understood tomorrow might never come. On the Resolute, Elena walked the lower decks, speaking to crew where they worked. She offered no empty promises, only truth. "We face the strongest the Dominion can send. Many of us won't see another dawn. But if we hold here, humanity will. That's worth any cost." Her words spread. In the silence after she left, crew straightened, hands steadier, eyes sharper. Belief had taken root again, not blind, but tempered in fire. When Crozet came, he came in fury. The Dominion fleet surged into Sol like a tidal wave, dreadnoughts blotting the stars, escorts fanning into wings of steel. Their formations stretched across the void, so vast it seemed the night itself had turned against humanity. From the flagship at their heart, Crozeth's voice thundered across open channels. Fragile ones. You cut, you hid, you bled us. Now you die where you were born. No stone will remain of your cradle. Elena gave no reply. She stood on her bridge, jaw set, eyes on earth rising in the distance. Humanity's first and last home. She raised her hand. All ships engage. The void ignited. Terran vessels surged forward, smaller, faster, darting between the Dominion giants like wolves among elephants. Missiles streaked, rail slugs thundered. Plasma lit the dark. The first Dominion dreadnought staggered under a coordinated strike, its armor peeled back until its reactor flared and burst. Cheers erupted across Terran channels, but were cut short as 3 frigates vanished in counterfire. The battle raged brutal and close. Every ship was committed. No reserves, no fallback. The earth hung behind them like a silent witness. On the Resolute, alarm screamed. Portside batteries destroyed. Shields failing. Elena braced against the railing. Focus fire on their flagship. Cut off the head. Through the chaos, Crozeth's massive dreadnought loomed, darker and deadlier than all others. Its hull glowed crimson, its weapons tearing Terran ships apart with merciless precision. Holt growled, "We'll never punch through that armor." "Not conventionally," Elena agreed. Her eyes narrowed, a plan forming. "Then we don't fight conventionally." She opened fleet-wide comms. Her voice was calm, steady, final. "This is Admiral Solara. Crozeth thinks us weak. He believes humanity can't endure what he brings. Let's prove him wrong. Every ship, every gun, every life, drive it into his throat. Tonight we show the galaxy what it costs to mistake kindness for weakness." Across the fleet, battered voices roared back. For Earth. For humanity. The charge began. Terran ships hurled themselves at Crozeth's dreadnought. Frigates slashed at its flanks, cruisers poured fire into its guns, even crippled vessels rammed themselves against its hull, detonating in blazing sacrifice. The giant staggered under the assault, but still it endured, lashing out with plasma storms that vaporized whole squadrons. On the Resolute, systems flickered, hull groaned, but Elena's voice never wavered. "Closer. Bring us into strike range." Holt stared at her. "You mean to?" "Yes." He closed his eyes, then nodded. "Then I'll see it done." The Resolute dove through fire, weaving between enemy barges, shields shattering, armor stripped away. Inside Crozeth's throne chamber, the warlord watched, fury boiling. They throw themselves into the jaws of death. Fools. Yet even as he sneered, warning klaxons filled the air. His dreadnought's armor cracked, fires spreading across its decks. And still the Resolute came. At point-blank range, Elena gave the final order. All power to forward railguns. Load the core. Sanaa froze. "The core will overload." "That's the point." The bridge crew went silent. Then one by one they nodded. Holt's voice was low but steady. "It's been an honor." Elena's eyes never left the enemy flagship. Fire. The Resolute unleashed her final volley. Rail slugs, overloaded with the ship's reactor energy, tore through Crozeth's dreadnought like spears of a vengeful god. The flagship convulsed, reactors igniting in a chain reaction. A sun was born in the void. The shockwave consumed both ships, shredding them to burning fragments. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then cheers erupted across Terran comms as the Dominion formation wavered, leaderless. Without Crozeth, there will fractured. One by one, the Dominion ships broke and fled, leaving wreckage and flame in their wake. Hours later, what remained of the Terran fleet gathered in battered orbit over Earth. Survivors wept, embraced, saluted the dead. The cost was staggering, but they had won. On the surviving bridge, Holt stood among the remnants of the command staff, grief in his eyes, but pride too. "She gave everything," he said softly, "so we could stand." The crew bowed their heads. Elena Solara's name would be carved into history, not as a diplomat, not as a supplicant, but as the admiral who showed humanity's true face. Below, On Earth, people looked up at the night sky. For the first time in generations, they saw not fear, but hope. Humanity had been tested. They had bled, they had burned, but they had not broken. The galaxy had learned a truth it would never forget. Humans were never prey. They were fire.